In this episode, we'll talk about shooting portraits in natural light.
Adorama TV presents Digital Photography One-on-One, where we answer your questions. Here's your host, Mark Wallace.
Welcome to another episode of Digital Photography One-on-One. I'm Mark Wallace. Well, we've had a lot of people writing in asking all kinds of questions about shooting portraits in natural light. And I think this question from Joshua in Menlo Park, California sums it up best. I'm having trouble shooting in natural light. Can you help me find the light? Well, Joshua, I think we can. And when we talk about finding the light, really what we're talking about is understanding how light works and how we can apply that to shooting portraits and other things. And so let's talk all about that by zipping downtown and shooting outside. We're here in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, and we are going to find the light. And to do that, I've got a couple of things here. We don't have any light modifiers at all. We have no flash. We don't have any reflectors. All we have is a camera, and this is a Fuji X Pro 1 that I'm really happy to have a little bit early. And we also have a Sekonic light meter. And the reason we have the light meter is I'm going to show you that there are some situations where a meter that's built into your camera might get things wrong because of highly reflective backgrounds. So we'll learn about that and other things. So let's get started. Well, I love shooting in urban environments, and right now we're at the Phoenix Public Library. On one side of the building, we actually have these repeating patterns by these shades that are on the side of the building, and I really love those. And so what I want to do is shoot into the shade and maybe shoot some black and white images to get these repeating patterns. I think it's going to look really terrific. Well, when I'm looking around at the different types of light, I'm looking for a really hard light on things that have strong shape. And one of the things I found was this really cool sign of the Phoenix Public Library, but then I noticed that it was highly reflective. And so as I was shooting it, not only was I looking for the shape, but I was actually focusing on the reflections of the people in the sign. And I think I got some really interesting results. Well, here's something that I find really interesting. On one side of this sort of structure, we have really hard light that's coming straight from the sun. But on the other side, we have nice soft light because it's in shade. So I can use both of those things to my advantage. If I really want to get some strong shapes, maybe some black and white images, we know that hard light works best for those, so I can shoot on this side of the structure. But if I want to shoot maybe some macros or something that's a little bit softer, I can shoot on the other side. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. One of the things I really like about this is how this light is falling from dark, and then we have this hard light hitting right here, and it really is going to give us a nice effect on this. And I'm shooting I've got my camera in macro mode, so I can really get in there close, and also I can focus really, really close to the front side of this, about right here. And that's going to give me the effect that I want, and it is awesome. So I'll take a couple shots. Now I'm shooting really slowly because I really want to be deliberate about what I'm getting, and that's okay. You don't have to shoot really fast. You can really slow down, take in the fine details, and as you're looking, you might find something else that's interesting about whatever it is you're shooting, and you can sort of migrate around. So this is such an interesting piece of architecture here. I'm sure I'm going to find all kinds of different macro opportunities right here using both this side, which has really hard light, and the other side, which is in shade. So let's use both of those opportunities to get a lot of great shots. Well, one of the things I noticed inside this structure, there's all kinds of things people have written, and I am, again, just looking for opportunities to shoot texture. And because it's in this shaded, sort of open shaded area, it is significantly darker in here than outside. And this is where it really pays off to shoot a little bit slower and more deliberately, because as I was looking at this, I have my camera set to an aperture value of 1.4, which outside in this bright sunlight you would think is plenty of light coming into the camera. But then what I noticed is that my shutter speed had fallen all the way to 40th of a second. In handheld, that's just not fast enough. And so by making sure I was watching my aperture and shutter speeds before I shot, I realized I needed to increase my ISO value so I don't have any blurred images. So actually in this environment here, which is in bright sunlight, but this is a shaded area, I am shooting at ISO 400 to make sure that my shutter speed stays above 60th of a second. So again, shoot slowly, shoot deliberately, and make sure that you're paying attention to aperture and shutter speeds so that you don't get back to the studio or to your editing computer and see a bunch of blurry images, because they won't necessarily show up on the back of the screen. So I'm going to shoot around inside here because I think I really have some neat opportunities. All right, well, now that we've seen how we can shoot in different lighting scenarios, shooting objects and textures and patterns and things, I've asked Sarah to join me, and what we're going to do is we're going to shoot some portraits. We're going to talk specifically about how to shoot in shade and use a reflector and things like that. So we're going to start right now by shooting in an environment that is just a nice shady area, and this is going to give us really nice soft light. And against these colored windows back here, it gives us a nice even background, and you can see that we've got some really interesting shots here in this location. Well, the difference between this location and open shade is that here we have shade almost everywhere. Open shade is a little bit different, so I want to show you that next. Well, let's talk about the difference between shade and open shade. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of pictures of Sarah in this environment. Now what we're standing right in the middle of this really nice shade that's coming from this wall here. But this is a little bit different than when we shot earlier because we have all around us just this bright sunlight. And what that bright sunlight is going to become is a source of light that's directional. And so depending on where I put Sarah inside this open shaded area, I can get more highlights from this or I can get less depending on how far I put her into the shade, and it looks really interesting. So if I have her right over here on the edge, we've got this bright sunlight coming in and she'll be looking out that way. So even though Sarah's in the shade, we have this light that's hitting her face. Although if we put her closer in, away from this light, she'll still have that for specular highlights in her eyes, but we won't have a glow on her face like we will if we put her right at the edge of the open shade. Perfect, just like that, Sarah. Love it. Oh yeah, this is great. Now we're going to talk about something here called specular highlights, and we'll see it on this picture that I just took. And what specular highlights are, it's just the highlights, or in the eyes, it's called catch lights of the light sources around us. So if we walk right over here, you can see that there's this nasty bright background, and all that white light is going to come in and hit Sarah's eyes, and that's going to create this highlight in her eyes that's a specific shape. And when we zoom in on this image that I just took, you can see that you can clearly see the reflections of the light sources to the left and right of Sarah, and it creates a very unique shape in her eyes. Now that's just something you need to be aware of when you're choosing a location to shoot, because you want to choose places that have all kinds of highlights in the eyes to really bring your model to life. Well, we found another really interesting area here, and the thing I like about this is the texture of this wall and how it bends and sort of curves around. And so what I'm using is just this very shady area to get really nice soft light. We have a really wide open aperture, so we have the focus just dropping off, and we're going to get a great portrait right here in this location. Well, we just found this really interesting place here, and this is a very reflective material, and so that can cause some issues sometimes when we're metering, because this is much brighter than Sarah's dark outfit. And so to make sure that I get the absolutely perfect exposure, I'm actually going to use an external light meter and see exactly what my settings should be. So I'm shooting at 200th of a second at f4, and we're going to get some great shots. One of the things that we deal with a lot when we're shooting with outdoor light is there's a huge difference between somebody in shade and the background. In fact, you can see right behind me, everything's blown out and looks nasty. And so a lot of times what we'll do as photographers is expose for the background and then use a fill flash to brighten our subject, or maybe a reflector or something. Well, we don't have any of that stuff. We just have our camera, so we're going to use a trick, and specifically we're going to use a window as a mirror. So if we look over here, you can see that we have nice shade right here, and this is a tinted glass window, and it reflects the background, all the trees and the park and everything perfectly. And because it's a tinted window, it is much dimmer than the actual light it's reflecting. So we can put our model in the shade and we can get a reflection of the park, and we can get a great portrait of model and trees and everything without using a fill flash or a reflector. Well, to illustrate this, Sarah has joined me here, and we've put her right at the very edge of the light. You can see here's light, and the light goes away right there. So we're right here, again, in open shade, and you can clearly see that there's this reflection in this glass. And look at these pictures. You can see that we were able to make it look like Sarah was actually sitting in the park, although she was sitting in this shaded area with just a reflection behind her of the park, and it does the trick. Well, we had a ton of fun downtown shooting all of these portraits. Thank you very much to Sarah for helping us out. One of the questions that we get a lot is, what camera was that? And what modifier did you use? And what equipment did you use? Well, you can find all of that stuff out by going to the Adorama Learning Center. We've listed all the gear that we used in this episode and all the other episodes as well as we have links to all of the other episodes of Digital Photography One-on-One. So if you're interested in learning more about photography, zip on over to Adorama and find out all the goodness that's there. And not only that, but if you have a question about photography, you can send your questions to me at askmark@adorama.com.
This episode is brought to you by Adorama TV. Visit the Adorama Learning Center where you'll find photography tips and techniques, links to the gear used in this episode, and related videos. For all the latest photography, video, and computer gear, visit Adorama.com. And the next time you're in New York City, visit our store located on 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue.
Speed.
Not so easy, is it?
There we go. Is that good?
That is the blooper reel right there. That is the blooper reel. It's my wife, everybody. Okay.
Digital Photography One-on-One is written and produced by Snap Factory. For more information about our workshops, visit snapfactory.com.